On a technical level, My Hero Academia has always been very impressive. I don't care what you think of the story, or the fan base, or the anime, you gotta admit, the manga art is crazy. Right off the rip, chapter 1, BAM! You've got these ginormous, highly detailed panels. Look at this booger guy that tries to suck off Bakugo, he's so gestural and fluid. From this one image, you know exactly how this guy moves around. You don't even need to see him animated. And that was in 2014. Jump to the present, and Horikoshi is going absolutely sicko mode, topping himself chapter after chapter. There's also a few very interesting stylistic choices he makes in his art that have always stuck out to me. Like the way he draws noses. They're so weirdly triangular, and he absolutely refuses to draw nostrils, even the super detailed panels. His mouths are also really interesting. He refuses to draw tongues and sometimes the entire bottom row of teeth. The question is, why does he draw like this? Has it always been this way? Well, to answer that, we gotta go way back. In 2007, Horikoshi emerged from the Shadow Realm and published a one-shot called Tenko about this kid with white hair that hates everyone and has the power to disintegrate anything he touches. Clearly, this was the inspiration for Mineta, but look at how different the art style is compared to his most recent work. There's a lot to unpack about it, but specifically I want you to pay attention to the noses and the mouths. Whoa! Look at that nose bridge! It's like the complete opposite of his current style. What happened between then and now? Well, the following year, Horikoshi came out with another one-shot called My Hero. It's a story about this guy named Jack Midoriya. I didn't make that up, I swear. This was truly a dark age for the Horikoshi art legacy. The art style lost its realism and became a lot more stylized, but the noses and mouths somehow became even more prominent than before, especially the bottom lip, causing it to look like fucking Big Mouth. But despite this awkward transitional period, Horikoshi's style kept getting more and more cartoony, and this process continued throughout his other 3 works before My Hero Academia. The next thing he published was another one-shot that is impossible to find on the internet other than this single Twitter thread. But from the pictures, you can see it's like the final transition to his signature style. The noses are still very prominent, but the overall proportions of the face are much more anime-esque. And his other 2 works, Omagadoki Zoo and Barrage, are much more recognizable. His noses gradually lose their nostrils and go from having a very clear bridge and bulb to being highly understated. And his mouths gain their signature triangular shape and well-structured teeth. The bottom lip only appears to emphasize certain expressions. Like this one here, it shows up in Omagadoki Zoo, again in Barrage, and again in My Hero Academia, and this is just one of many visual concepts he reuses over the years. There are a lot of characters that are obviously inspired by his previous works. Snipe and Uwabami are just cut and pasted from My Hero and Omagadoki Zoo. In Barrage, they got Nomu and Gigantomachia lookalikes. The main character looks just like Kirishima without his dyed hair. Even the story themes are similar. A main character that idolizes his hero, a main character that's optimistic to a fault, and remember that obscure one-shot he made? It's about everyone in the world randomly developing superpowers. It really feels like My Hero Academia is the ultimate culmination of Horikoshi's artistic endeavors, which would explain why he put so much care and effort into its creation. Earlier, I complimented the first chapter, but that is like the tip of the iceberg of good My Hero Academia art. Like, don't get me wrong, this early art is real charming, but compared to the latest chapters, it is like a fucking baby scribbling with crayons. Whoa! This shit is actually just bananas. It feels like every other page is a massive spread, and there's so much going on in each one that it incentivizes you to take a closer look and admire all the little details. Look me in the eyes and explain to me why you are not reading this manga right now. Now, it is important to note that Horikoshi has a team of like 3,000 editors that are practically doing all the drawings for him these days, but they are still under his artistic directive. And what's insane is how much the art style stays so consistent throughout its run that you don't even notice how much it improves until you jump back a few hundred chapters. But it's not like it's ever bad, it's always top quality, just varying degrees of it. Like, look at this 2-page spread from chapter 157 that's been living in my head rent-free for years. Shisaki's hand has such an imposing presence that it completely dominates the other panels. He's reaching out with such intensity that it overshadows everything else that's happening. There's also all sorts of little things you can learn by studying how he draws his characters. Like Deku's 2-toned hair, such a distinct way of showing the underlying structure of it. Or the way he uses visual comedy, like here where his skin is flying off his face, or when he and Ida get their faces punched in and it sticks out like that for a few pages. I also really admire how clear and readable the fight scenes are. Everything is very well telegraphed and rarely becomes muddy with details. It makes things so easy to digest. And that's actually something I wanted to talk about. There's sometimes a big disconnect between consumability and profundity. For example, Serial Experiments Lane is one of the most profound pieces of media I've ever seen. It's one of my favorite anime, and it's only 13 episodes. So why is it that I've only watched it 1.5 times, and I have read the entire 400 plus chapters of My Hero Academia like 5 times over now? There is something that is just inherently fun about the story and its characters. And I think it's the quality of the artwork and the obvious passion behind every panel that really solidifies its reading experience. It's held up all the way to the end. And the sad part is, despite how visually impressive the last arc has been, I already know it's going to be utterly castrated by studio bones and turned into this generic, highly saturated mush with these ugly neon blue skies. These guys are some of the top dogs in anime, but they need to fire whoever decided on the art direction for this show. It certainly has its moments, but they are the exception. And whenever anything well animated happens, it was probably drawn by this guy anyway. And considering how insane this final battle has been, they might as well just hire him to make the whole thing to do it justice. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but god damn, everyone is speculating on how it's going to come to an end. But me personally, I'm just waiting for Jack Midoriya to come in and save the day at the last minute.